You know the type. She laughs a little too easily at his jokes. She's not like other girls. She plays piano, speaks French, and is always suffering just enough to invite rescue. She is a pick-me girl, and she has been around for a very, very long time. Welcome to Georgian England, 1700 to 1830, where the pick-me girl wasn't a personality flaw. She was a survival strategy. Because the alternative, not being picked, was genuinely catastrophic. This is the story of what she had to do, why she did it, and the women who refused. Buckle in. This one goes places. First, let us establish what was actually at stake. In Georgian England, when a woman married, every single thing she owned became her husband's. Her money, her property, her legal identity. She ceased to exist as a legal person. She could not own property, sue in court, or sign a contract. She could not vote. She could not inherit if she had a brother. She could not work in any profession that did not involve complete economic destruction. There was exactly one career available to a woman of any standing: wife. If you were not married by your mid-20s, you were considered a problem, not a person with preferences. A problem, an old maid, a burden on the family. You would be passed between relatives like unwanted furniture, nursing their sick, minding their children, taking up as little space as possible and asking for nothing. Meanwhile, your father would negotiate your marriage with another man, over accounts, over port, without you in the room. So, what did a woman have to do to get picked? Georgian society had a very specific list. They called it being accomplished: pianoforte, singing, drawing, watercolor, French, Italian, dancing, needlework, deportment, household management, a sweet and equable temper at all times. Oh, and all of it had to appear completely effortless, because working hard at anything was not attractive. Natural grace was attractive, which meant you had to work extremely hard to appear as though you had not worked at all. She was practicing pianoforte at 5 in the morning, before anyone else was awake. 6 hours later, she sat down at the same instrument and played as though it was the most natural thing in the world. And here is the rule that makes no sense, and yet made complete sense. Do not play too well. Playing brilliantly was considered blue stocking. That meant unmarriageable intellectual. The sweet spot was accomplished enough to display refinement, not good enough to feel threatening. The French lessons were not so she could read Voltaire. They were for dinner party deployment. Drop one correct French phrase at the right moment. Smile modestly. Move on. The embroidery took 4 hours a day. She presented it as a pleasant idle occupation. The deportment practice involved balancing a book on her head, while her governess watched with a ruler. A conduct book of the era actually said, "True elegance consists entirely in invisible labor." They were not wrong. They just did not seem to find this troubling. All of this preparation built toward one thing: the season. Every spring, Georgian high society descended on London for a few months of concentrated social display. Balls, dinner parties, assemblies, the opera, Hyde Park promenades, and everywhere at all times the real business: eligible women being assessed by eligible men. The most exclusive venue was Almack's Assembly Rooms in King Street, London. Getting a voucher to Almack's was harder than getting into the best nightclub you have ever tried to enter. The debutante entrance was an art form in itself. Everything she had trained for, distilled into one moment. The dance card told you everything. A full card meant success. A blank card was a disaster you carried home. Women even had their own communication system. The fan. Fan opened slowly. "I love you." Fan tapped on the left cheek. "I am engaged." Fan dropped. "We will be friends." These women were operating a sophisticated signaling system in plain sight. Impressive, actually. At Hyde Park. Ah, Hyde Park. Where the purpose of a walk was never once to enjoy the walk. So what did the daily performance actually look like? She laughed at the joke. Not too much. Not too little. The calibrated laugh was its own accomplishment. She pretended to need help opening a gate she had operated 1,000 times before. She practiced the blush in the mirror, the blush of charming, modest sensibility. In the mirror, she had opinions, real ones, and she delivered them softened, as questions, never as knowledge. She read a book about fox hunting specifically so she could ask him an informed question about fox hunting. She walked through rain with perfect posture because you never knew who was watching. And at the end of every day, behind closed doors, she was simply exhausted. With her sister, in the dark, she was completely different. Sharp. Funny. herself. In her journal, she wrote what she could not say. The 2 documents of her life. One for the world, one for the draw. And if she played the game well, this was the outcome. Comfortable, settled, her own household. But not every woman played. Jane Austen wrote novels that dissected the entire system from the inside, and never married. She wrote at a tiny desk in a shared family sitting room. The door creaked. She used it as a warning system. In 1792, Mary Wollstonecraft published a vindication of the rights of woman. She named the accomplishment system exactly what it was. She said, "You are teaching women to be decorative when you should be teaching them to think." One reader's copy had 3 words written in the margin next to the key passage. Yes, yes, yes. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at 19, during a storm in Switzerland, as a party game. The blue stocking salons were drawing rooms where women were allowed to actually use their minds. Society called them blue stockings. It was not a compliment. It was a warning to men. This one is trouble. And here is where it gets genuinely complicated. It would be easy to look back at these women and call them pathetic. That would be wrong. They understood the system perfectly. They operated within the only available parameters with skill and intelligence. When you have no legal rights, no financial independence, and no access to any profession, performing accomplishment is not weakness. It is strategy. The question is not why she played along. The question is who built the game and why. The pick-me girl did not invent herself. She was invented for her. 200 years later, the instruments are different. The underlying structure is remarkably familiar. History is full of women who performed for survival, and women who put the pianoforte down and picked up something else. If you made it to the end, comment below, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Check out my previous video, and if you enjoyed it, the like button is right there. I'll see you in the next one.